Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Anime Night in the Dojo. Today's featured show, ReZero, Season 4.
Hi, yep, ReZero, Season 4, Episode 8. Welcome back to the dojo. I'm Ryu. That's Age. We're back for more Anime Night in the Dojo, and well, we just got off the last episode there recording, and Subaru may or may not have had a plan. Once again, it's probably not the greatest plan because he doesn't have a helicopter. It's a real bummer. You know, yeah. Doesn't even have a spaceship. He doesn't have a helicopter. He doesn't have squat. He doesn't even have a cool headset. But what he does have is he's lost his memories. It's right there in the description of the episode for Crunchyroll. But not that we should take Crunchyroll's word for anything these days. But you know, but once again, if you're in India and you're looking to be a manga author or whatever and want to pitch an anime idea, just email the Crunchyroll CEO because he's a dumbass. Talked a little bit about that on Patreon last time. see the Patreon part of last week's episode for that. But anyway, as for what's happening here, I don't know. I kind of hope it has something to do with gluttony because everybody with the other two were scared of the sister, and maybe she did a thing. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe Greed just gave Subaru classic the classic Archer psychograde retrograde amnesia or whatever Krieger calls it. Maybe it's just that, and maybe he just needs to get hit in the head with the frying pan and kill the frying pan dude. I don't know. It could be anything. There was no like cue for the viewer or anything. The only thing that was mentioned about Subaru's memories, if you even want to call it that, last time was Anastasia as a echidna calling out like she couldn't find anything about you and was like slowly trying to push him to, you know, admit that he's an otherworlder, even though obviously she doesn't know about otherworlders. I assume Subaru's potentially one of the few otherworlders of this world, and it's not like you know, say our other show right now, Slime, where they're very well aware of otherworlders. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as far as we know, while there has been multiple otherworlders to this world, it's not known that they were otherworlders.
Yeah. So we'll just have to see what happens here, because when he woke up, he was talking about the convenience store. That's where he got isekai. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with this. I hope the pacing for this episode's better, but like we talked about last time, sometimes episodes like last time just have to happen. I'm not too concerned about it. Well, once again, I'm still very skeptical on what apparently is supposed to be coming up in the next couple episodes with things being rated 9.5 and above, and I don't really buy into IMDb ratings or any kind of internet ratings at all, really, because bots, people who spite downvote stuff, just every myriad of internet thing, ratings don't matter to me. The only rating that should matter, yours. Your own personal rating. Did you like it? Cool.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, I've never really put a ton of stock into ratings in the first place, but the thing that really kind of drove it over the edge for me was that whole freaking debacle with interspecies reviewers, where people like artificially voted it up to be higher than freaking FMAB for a while there on freaking My Anime List.
Yeah.
And then My Anime List literally, instead of, you know, doing anything like editing their own site or whatever, employed bots to like review bomb it instead.
Right, because that's the way to handle that. Why would you do it the easy way? I don't know. It seems like in our world, people like things super hyper, at least leadership, likes things hyper convoluted and stupid. For no reason. Other than to further their own gains, obviously. But some of the stuff even is hyper convoluted and stupid for them. So I don't understand why they would want it that way. You would think you want stuff to be as easy as possible. That's just me. What do I know? But as it stands, we're going to push some buttons and get going here and see if this was a Subaru plan or what. But it could be anything that we talked about last time. So people on Patreon, we'll see you on the other side of the edit for the timer reaction, and people on YouTube Beyond, we'll see you on the other side for the discussion and review, and any and all links to the various places that we're at, Twitch, Patreon, that kind of stuff. The timer action on Patreon is down there in the description if you want to check that out. So yeah, push buttons, watch whatever you want, and yeah, so we're gonna push some buttons and get going. So here goes some. Well, there you guys have it. He's Subaru Natsuki, and he's not the brokest guy in the room. He didn't even have that as part of the line. I'm kind of disappointed. That's like his whole gimmick. That's how he usually introduces himself, is as part of it. He did it in Isekai Quartet, you know. But yeah, that was this was something. We now have what is essentially season 1 Subaru having season 1 Subaru problems, but everybody else is in season 4.
Yep.
So that's quite the conundrum. We really didn't get anything on what could potentially be happening here. Just get his memories erased, and he's back to as he was as he stepped out of the convenience store when he first got isekai'd. And, you know, I will give them credit for the whole, you know, this whole situation was what it was, them talking through it, you know, a situation like this, they're going to talk through it, what have you. That's totally fine. That doesn't matter. Anastasia did seem a little sus. Echidna, whatever. Anastasia's Echidna seemed a little sus in this whole situation because she had, we talked about like visual cues and looks and stuff like that, and she potentially was the one that was aggregating them to like bail on Subaru entirely there.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to see what happens with that. But
we know Echidna is very like logical and logistic. Like she keeps everything as pros and cons. Like we saw that especially in the tunnel situation of like she had basically no qualms just killing Ram because Ram became a problem.
Right. So that's just how she's been. But well, one thing I will say here is I was trying to find was I will give them credit for them doing the like whole like, you know, him trying to open like his status window, you know, like classic isekai, you know, protagonist kind of situation. He doesn't have that. That's actually kind of an interesting thing to think about. Is most isekai protagonists have some sort of status window, like, you know, even Makoto had it in Campfire Cooking, where they like look at their stats. You know, Kazuma has like, you know, the card and stuff, you know what I mean, for the adventurer card. And
yeah, they always get some form of, they either get a built-in HUD of some sort, some form of like analyze skill that basically gives them a status sheet of some sort, or Kazuma, yeah, the kind of odd one out in that it's like an in-universe physical item that gives the stats, but that gives us stats for everyone. That's just how that world works. Yeah. Kind of like how in like in freaking Danmachi they have the tattoos.
Yeah. But this was pretty entertaining for what it was. I gotta appreciate them doing that because, you know, it's just it's one of the classic isekai things, and for Subaru he doesn't have that. So him doing that was pretty funny. I will give him credit for the whole whip thing of him whipping himself. In all reality, that should be muscle memory. So yeah, him kind of griping about that is kind of interesting because, you know, generally speaking, you have cases like in the real world where people have, you know, amnesia of some kind, but they can get in a car and drive it. They can ride a bike or swim or, you know, any kind of like random, like if they're like a crane operator, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, like if they were like forklift certified.
Yeah, I was going to bring this up because this is actually probably one of the biggest pieces of evidence we have towards what's going on with him, that it is some form of power in play, most likely a witch factor, because that's one of the established things we have with Return by Death, which is another witch factor. Is that it resets muscle memory every time. That's why he can't train in his loops at all, because while he keeps the memories of the loops, his body is reset entirely, and he can't train it. He can't maintain any muscle memory or anything like that.
Yeah. So that's just something to remember for that, and that's why we're bringing it up here. So yeah, I don't know. As for the rest of it, it was as brutal as season 1. Totally fine.
If this was simply just, conk on a head amnesia, then he would have maintained his muscle memory.
Yeah, so that's what I was getting at there. But the rest of this was what it was. The Reed stuff was pretty savage. All of it was savage across the board. But at the end of the day, a lot of people have downplayed this whole situation right here, and it's come out recently, and I think we talked about it last week a little bit. And one of the episodes last week was people talking about like, oh, how Subaru's parents must be feeling. It's like a what if kind of situation, like their son just disappeared and they got no closure or whatever. It's just like, you guys, like, I don't know how it is in the source material, but I assume it's in there, considering how they framed it, especially in Echidna's, in the Sanctuary when they're showing all that stuff off. And a lot of people have played that off as, oh, that was just Echidna. I don't think it was.
No, the Sanctuary was, the whole thing with the Sanctuary trial was that the Sanctuary, like, shows you things based on your own mind. Like, Echidna didn't seem to have any real influence over what you saw or how you saw it.
Right.
She was privy to what you saw, but she wasn't controlling it at all.
Right. Like that one time where she shows up in the classroom in a schoolgirl uniform. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. But there is still definitely some questionable vibes about his dad and his mother. You know what I mean?
More so the mom.
Yeah, more so the mom, obviously.
The main thing we suspected immediately was that the dad was basically another isekai protagonist, and the mom is from one of the other worlds, like whatever the dad got isekai to.
Right. Because, well, once again, there's a lot of stuff from... Not a lot of stuff, but especially one of the major context players from this is something that isn't in this show yet, is the guy from the Isekai Quartet movie.
Hoshin.
Yeah, Hoshin. So it's just... There's some weird stuff going on, and I think a lot of people are downplaying the possibility of Subaru's mother especially being very important to this story. And that is a yet-to-come thing as far as I'm concerned when it comes to speculation and theory crafting. There's something up with her. I know that's super vague, but I got nothing else that I can really point to her at current. You know what I mean? From based on everything we've seen, outside of something like Pandora. You know what I mean? Something to that effect.
Yeah, if I had to guess, because once again, like, Satella has some form of preformed relationship with Subaru before he ever even gets isekai. If I had to guess based on the context we have right now, it's something along the lines of Subaru's mom was the third witch, where you have you have Pandora, Satella, and then Subaru's mom.
Yeah.
His dad got isekai'd, fell in love with her, they went back to the real world together because he found some way to do it. But somewhere along those lines, alternate timeline Subaru somehow got stuck over there as Flugel, developed some relationship with Satella, but Grandfather Paradox needed Satella to bring him into that world in the first place.
Right. So,
and is trying to achieve some sort of overarching plan with trying to set the world straight now that things are all fucked up because of whatever happened that caused him to show up there as Flugel in the first place.
Yeah. So that's where we're at on that whole situation. So that's probably definitely going to be a later thing. I don't think it's going to be in the next season or two. It's probably going to be like an arc 10, 11 kind of situation where they'll be getting into potential, or the author will get into that. But yeah, the whole rest of the situation is what it is. We can speculate on who was the one pushing him. Obviously, the two immediate suspects are Anastasia and Shaola, because once again, Shaola lied. She absolutely just, once again, for anybody who just missed it and thought she was joking, she just flat out said, lying is exhausting, right after she told them that there was no fifth rule. You know what I mean? And she mentioned secret rules. So she lied about something. So there was something in that entire spiel about the rules that she lied about. So the easiest thing to point to is that there is actually a fifth rule that matters.
Well, so the whole thing with that situation was that she says at the end that, lying makes her like all itchy and exhausting and stuff like that. But she says it immediately after praising Flugel as being like, a kind, upstanding guy, kind of playing it off as that's what she was lying about.
Yeah.
But all she states is just that she doesn't actually ever state that that's what she lied about. She just states that, lying makes her itchy and exhausting and stuff like that, meaning she lied somewhere during the conversation.
Yeah.
At least once.
Right. But either way, this here is definitely an activation of some sort of contract. Now, keep in mind, three towers, there's something going on with this from the mythos that I'm not privy to, because this has to mean something.
Yeah, I know both 3 and 7 are important to the Pleiades. Like, there's multiple interpretations of it. The main one I'm familiar with is the 7 Divine Sisters, but like I said, 3 is also important to some different versions of it.
Right. But in all reality, once again, something might have to look up. But the thing here is that nobody was allowed to leave until they completed the trials. Subaru stepped outside, hoping that somebody would kill him. So
now Charlotte's just going to kill everyone and end this timeline.
Right. So that is what it is. Okay. But what do we know? We know that Subaru did end up in the freaking library, and that's where the him being Yamcha, almost Yamcha posed in the library shot comes from. So
yeah.
He did not go see Reed. He went back to the library and presumably read a book. Now, from what he saw with, was it Pride that he read?
Yeah, Typhon.
Yeah, it was Typhon.
Right.
Yeah, it was Pride. So, he experienced everything that happened to her like he was kind of reliving her memories. So, potentially, he read somebody's death book, and they had such a horribly traumatic mental event, or potentially also got their memories wiped. So that's what happened to him.
But once again, it's a supernatural thing of some sort, or else he wouldn't have lost his muscle memory.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like a traumatic thing. It was the most likely thing is either the gluttonies are here and he got ambushed, or he read someone's death book and during it experienced them getting their memories eaten by gluttony and somehow got rebounded onto himself.
Yeah. So there is definitely some shenanigans afoot. There's only so much more I can speculate on this because it's at least this part of the story, the author is trying to really obfuscate what's going on. There's the obvious, obviously with whoever's pushing him, you know what I mean? But the two obvious major suspects are Shaola, because the whole Scorpion motif and what's going on with her, especially with Subaru losing his memories, that could be a problem for part of the rule set. This could be a outcome that Flugel does not want at all, so he kind of has to force it now. You know what I mean? That could have been one of the secret rules, if I ever lose my memory, you have to kill me or something. That kind of thing.
Yeah, she could have some sort of contingent plan of if he loses his memories, you have to keep doing these specific things until he snaps out of it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Or once again, to Anastasia, he's a risk now if he's lost his memories.
Yeah.
So she could be trying to kill him. Melee is a friggin' loose cannon. No one knows what she's doing, so it could be her, but I don't think it's her necessarily, mostly because, once again, the second one we hear the footsteps, and whoever it was has clacky shoes. So, they're heels or wood bottoms, and they step fairly loudly. Melee makes no noise when she's walking around. She's an assassin. Like every time
Yeah.
you hear her, she never gives off any footsteps.
Beatrice and Amelia don't really put off a lot of footsteps either. Neither does Rom. You know what I mean? So, from what we saw from Anastasia, I'm pretty sure we saw her shoes last time, so that would be something I have to go back to, but I'm pretty sure she has some sort of heels, and I believe Shaula is, Shaula, she's fairly heavy foot scene. So, but yeah, this is definitely interesting. I don't know if there's anything to glean from this frame here based on the books that he has pulled out there. They do seem to be fairly random, but they're all from this shelf right here.
Yeah, I was going to bring up that. That's the only thing is they're all on the ground floor shelves, which they pulled out most of the books on these shelves when they were here the first time.
Yeah.
And didn't really have anything to go off of them. The only thing of note, really, is just that this is also the same section where they found the Typhon book. So he might have stumbled into something to do with other witches. Like, there could be other witches or the Sin Archbishops or something like that related in this area. So we still don't know how the books are organized.
Yeah. Because from what they said, they're organized in no particular order, chronologically or anything. They seem to be random. But I'm sure they're organized in some weird-ass Subaruian fashion. Flugelian fashion. So, yeah, I don't know. But, again, not a whole hell of a lot happened in these 2 episodes. We got 2 more deaths. That is what it is. It makes sense. We're going to get another one next time. And I'm pretty sure everybody's going to die in the next one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just... The next one is just freaking... Shaula's Terminator mode activates. She just kills everyone and gets to Subaru last because he's the furthest away. And then, which will give us like some glimpse as to like what Shaula's actual powers and personality is like. But then we'll reset and start actually making progress and trying to figure things out. Which, like I said, it is most likely a Gluttony plot, just because Gluttony's in the OP. I know Gluttony is relevant to something around this point in the story. Like, I know the Gluttonies are one of the bigger players for a little while, until eventually it switches over to, like, Lust being, like, the main Sin Archbishop.
Right. So, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what happens here, obviously. But going
also,
in it...
the fact the whole point of this storyline in the first place is trying to solve the Gluttony situation.
Yeah, so you would assume they'd be involved somehow. So, yeah. But I'm still very skeptical on the fact that you got in the next couple episodes a potential, or not even a potential, but a so-called 10 out of 10. Especially when, I've seen the majority of this season, like when the ratings pop up, and even these 2 episodes, like 7 and 8, they were like listed as like above 8.5. These last 2 episodes are nothing above a 6 for me. They're full on nothing. You know what I mean? They're fine for what they are. You know what I mean? Just like everything that needs to be there was there. But from like the story standpoint and making any kind of progression or anything super important, there was nothing there. You know what I mean? Outside the intrigue of this episode with Subaru losing his memories and all the stuff that happened, there was a couple bits of comedy, sure, whatever. But there was nothing spectacular here. You know what I mean? These were very, very mediocre episodes as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, I don't see how you can look at these last 2 episodes, especially 7, the one before this, and call it, like an 8.5 or a 9. It's not. Yeah. It is absolutely not. It is incredibly middle of the road mediocre. You have to take everything into account. All the animation was fine, all the sound design, all the attention to detail, all that stuff was fine. I mean, no gripes there. Nothing wrong with the voice acting. No like hiccups in the animation or anything weird like that. But when it came to the story progression and stuff like that, there's just nothing there. So that really detracts from anything score-wise, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, both of these episodes were set up for what's going to be the big finale to the arc.
Yeah.
Which is fine in of itself. But the last episode did drag out. And this episode, while it was better pacing-wise, still wasn't great. Not much actually happened for setup. We definitely could have and probably should have gotten at least a little more information as to what's going on. Which, like I said, it's still fine, but we're not looking at amazing material here. So there's going to have to be a massive step up in the next few episodes for it to even come close to warranting the kind of ratings people are giving it.
Yeah. And I hesitate to say this, but it's there. You know what these last 2 episodes were? They were 6 and then 7. I'm not saying it the other way. That's as far as I'd go for that if I really had to rate this. I'd give it a 6-7. So it's just not there. You know what I mean? Like I said, when it comes to the majority of stuff like this, the story and the pacing is the stuff that generally matters the most. And then, yes, animation and stuff like that can detract from situations, a la the most recent One Punch Man season. We all saw what happened with that. But once again, Age and I have talked about that a little bit, is like, for everything that's happened in One Punch Man, that was still One Punch Man. You know what I mean? The story was still there. The character interactions, all that stuff, that was still there. So it was still One Punch Man. It was just poorly animated for the vast majority of it. And there was a lot of cut corners. But it was still One Punch Man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, there really wasn't even that many fights for them to fuck up the animation on. So, like, it wasn't that bad. It was really only towards the end that the animation really was kind of starting to be apparently like a problem, because it was when you're getting into the fights.
Right.
The big problem really is just going to be if they don't get their shit together for next season, because next season is like all spectacle fights.
Right.
And all about the animation.
Yeah, I also found it kind of interesting on that is like, people were like calling it like One Frame Man and stuff like that. And you can look at a sequence like right here. When characters are standing around talking, there's very minimal animation. You know what I mean? And in that last season of One Punch Man, it was a lot of standing around and talking. You know what I mean? So, yeah, was there like the Garo sliding down the hill thing and, whatever. But it was a lot of standing around and talking. And yeah, there was a lot of cut corners and a lot of stuff wasn't like smooth and, whatever, because they didn't have the time. But at the end of the day, when characters are standing around talking, there's not a huge amount to animate. You know what I mean? Like Shaola, yeah, she jumped around here a little bit and whatever, but that's not a fight sequence. That's her making a couple like moves with her body, and that's it. But I'm not trying to defend how poor that animation quality of One Punch Man was in the last season. But what I am saying is that it definitely could have been way worse. And it's not the studio's fault, because once again, this was a higher up thing. They just weren't given time. What are you supposed to do when you have no time? You put out what you possibly can. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, once again, in actual full-on production time, they were only given like a little less than 2 weeks an episode.
Yeah. And that's a lot of things that a lot of people don't understand about that, and I'll mention it every time that I can. Just because there was 6 or 7 years, whatever that was, oh god, I'm saying 6, 7 again, between the 2 seasons, they weren't working on it that whole time. A lot of people are like, oh, they had 7 years to do this. It's like, no. they were like, hey, so we need to get this out in 6 months. And they kind of probably just raised their eyebrow, the Rock style, and were like, excuse you? The fuck do you mean we have to get this out in 6 months?
Yeah, they were given 6 months. A one-core season typically takes at least a year, usually about 1.5 to 2 years.
Yep.
For your average studio.
Yep. So that was the whole thing. Just because a show goes on a hiatus, like say whatever it is, with something that isn't in production currently, like Tanya's coming back next month. They haven't been working on that season since Tanya stopped. They started probably like a year and a half ago. You know what I mean? So it's crazy to me that people think stuff like, oh, well, there was this amount of a duration between the two things. You know, look at where we are in the Elder Scrolls franchise. They have not been working on Elder Scrolls 6 since the day after they finished Skyrim. You know what I mean? So, just because there's a big gap doesn't mean that the studios have been working on the next season from that exact second since the previous season stopped. You know what I mean? Sometimes there's season overlap and they're working on 2 seasons at a time with 2 different teams and whatnot. Or, you know, they have to get the green light for production. And sometimes the green light for production doesn't happen for years after the previous season sometimes. You know?
No, they've been working on the Star Wars sequels ever since the end of the original trilogy.
Right, yeah. They've just been working on it for, 40 years. You know, the woman who plays Rey, she's actually like 80 years old in reality. That was her 40 years ago. So they just aged all the older characters for these. You know what I mean? But yeah, I digress. But again, you see a lot of these ratings, and you just gotta decide for yourself for the most part. And when we, as reviewers, have to look at it from an objective standpoint, you know, especially like I've seen like this whole season, and you know they have it, they have it like down the list on like the sites that like rate all this stuff and that kind of thing. And every episode of this season was like above an 8.5, and I look at that and go, no. You know what I mean? Like, you could maybe give them the benefit of the doubt for like lack of story, and if you care more about animation and stuff like that, that's fine. But the story is what drives anything. Everything else is secondary. You know what I mean? What you come to expect from, like I said, with like One Punch Man. It's not like they changed anything about the formula for that show. Maybe they changed something different from the source material a little bit, but that was still the One Punch Man formula.
Like, the only thing that they changed, from what I know, was the whole thing of them altering the Phoenix Man fight.
Yeah. So,
apart from that, that was like all more or less the source material, from what I know.
Yeah. But either way, I'm not saying these episodes were terrible or anything, but they were very, very mediocre. Run-of-the-mill, bog standard, just kind of there. Nothing spectacular, nothing to really write home about. Pick your favorite idiom, you know what I mean? So, again, nothing to really complain about, just point out the fact that nothing really happened. For obvious story-related and production-related reasons, and that's totally fine. That's not really a complaint, it just is what it is. But that still detracts from what you'd call an overall score. Because it's, simple fact of the matter is, nothing happened.
Yeah, no, these were setup episodes where not much actually happened, and even as far as setup episodes go, they weren't that great at setup episodes. So it's just kind of like, it wasn't terrible, but it definitely could have been a lot better.
Yep. So, anyway, that's all we got for this one. I'm sure the last 3 episodes will definitely be better, especially with all the stuff that we talked about. But I'm not holding my breath on the whole 10 out of 10 thing, and we will definitely talk about that when we get to that episode. So, but when we get there next week. So, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, people of YouTube, Beyond Hype, you're watching. As always, we appreciate you stopping by and hanging with us here in the dojo for more Anime Night in the Dojo. And this was ReZero, Season 4, Episode 8. So, have a good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it is for you. Have a good one. See you next time.
Hey everyone, Victoria here. If you enjoyed the video, please consider pushing those like and subscribe buttons. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you again in the future.